Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, and I'm a little bit ragged today. I'm having to shove this in between some meetings, and I just ran in from outside. Outside where I am being Winnipeg, Canada, so it's like the North Pole outside. What is it? We all live in igloos, and we all take the dog sled to work. There you go. The rumors are true. You may have heard stories about Canada, and I'm here to tell you they're all true. Holy crap. We have a super chat already. This is from Alonda. We'll just get to this right away. Alonda Lorenzo says, I'm a senior member in quality assurance team with 10 plus years in the company and a few experiences in leadership roles. My team leader is moving. Any tip to win the position over people that are already team leader? Okay, so you want to be the new team leader, right? That's what I understand. Well, all I would say is, in a nutshell, okay, figure out who is the decision maker on this one. Who gets to decide who the new team leader is? That would presumably be a bigger boss somewhere, right? Okay. They're probably going to make that decision based on who they like the best. Okay. So if you want to try and advance yourself for the role, and there's not that much time, go and talk to them. Okay. Go and talk to that person, find out who they are if you don't know. And, just get them to like you, be pleasant, and, ask them how you're doing, ask them what they're looking for in the role, and say nothing but positive things about yourself. And that's pretty much all you can do in the short notice. God, why can't I talk today? Must be the Arctic air. That's pretty much what you can do in the short notice. Okay. I know that seems pretty self-evident, but that's really all you can do. Okay. They make those decisions based on who they like and who they have the best feeling about, right? And that brings us to our word of the day, which is heuristics. Heuristics. Maybe you've heard that term. People throw it around in management circles. It basically means that you're not thinking through something. It's preconditioning. Okay. You're not thinking on the spot. You're following an automatic process or algorithm. That's what heuristics means. Okay. So there you go. That's a word that people use in a management context. And hello to everybody. There's a whole bunch of people here. Joe says hi. Hi, Joe. Hi, Moonlight. Hi, MA. MA says, happy to hear from you on this channel. Yes, I've been away for a couple of weeks. I have been sicker than I have been in several years, actually. And I'm still kind of getting over the long tail of it, but I'm back. And hello to Sebastian K. And how do you say your name? Yavaz Danizmaz. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Says hi from NYC. How are you doing? I'm doing great. I'm back in my element. I'm booked solid with meetings, so that's when I'm happiest. Sebastian K says, good to see you. Thanks for your inspiring videos. Well, thank you very much for saying so, Sebastian K. You are awesome. You're spreading positivity. And you're actually doing what is a really good thing that I talk about a lot on this channel, which is, if you want people to like you, one simple and easy, great way of doing that is finding something that somebody does well, or that you think they do well, and telling them that and saying, hey, you do a great job at this. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. And it's not very often that we get that in our daily lives. And so when we do get it, it makes us feel really good. And we tend to like the person who's saying that to us. Okay. And just to explain for some people that may get the wrong idea, you're not, how can I put this? It's not bullshit. It's, you're being genuine. Find something that you do think is awesome about them, or you do appreciate, and just say that. Tell them that it's awesome. Tell them that you appreciate it. Okay. Don't say something's great when you don't think it's great. That's being disingenuous. But find something that you think is good. Tell them that. Okay. Especially to Lorenzo, Alenzo that was asking earlier. Okay, that's a great way of getting someone to feel good about you and like you. Because basically, if you're going to be the team leader, you're going to be in a position where you have to work with the boss. You want the boss to want to work with you. And a great way to do that is convince them that you're going to be easy to deal with. You're going to be friendly. They will enjoy their interactions with you. And you're not going to freak out over anything and be overly negative about anything. And a way to do that is to give them a free sample. Interact with them and show them how it goes, right? And if they get a good feeling interacting with you, then that's a good indicator that that's how you're going to be if they have to work with you on a regular basis. That's what job interviews are about. That's what selling yourself as an individual is about. Okay, so let's get down to it here. We got DeBaker World says hello from India. Hello, India. And my good friend Min is here. Me and Min, we're like that. We go way back together, back to the good old days. Min says, good evening, sir. Very long time no see. I really miss you, sir. Very happy to see you. Well, thank you. And likewise, I wouldn't be a live stream without Min here. Sebastian K, I do have a question. I'm in a senior management role, okay, general manager of a multinational enterprise, okay, working for some years in China. And you did not capitalize China. So I wonder if that was sending a signal there, just kind of between the lines. I'm looking for growing into greater roles, like C-levels and VP roles. Okay, that's a great start. Sebastian K continues. I'm going to continue your question here. It says, any tips for us under these circumstances in the world with hesitation of new employers to hire high-paid jobs? How to find an opportunity, or is the time to wait the priority until it's getting better? Listen, Sebastian, there's all kinds of factors in getting jobs like that, okay? A lot of those roles, how can I put this? It's political, okay? It's basically, well, I'm not saying it is like this, but it can be like this. It's what you stand for as a person. So for example, let's say as a manager, you placed a high priority on quality, okay? Or you were a stickler for the rules. You did everything by the book. Or you stood for salesmanship, okay? You know, maybe you worked in operations, but occasionally you would interact with customers, and you made sure that everyone in your operations department was aware of the basics of customer service. You really placed a high priority on how they interacted with customers. You had marketing on your mind as you were running operations. You were very conscious about how operations supports marketing efforts, things like this. So that's what you stand for. So when they want to fill a higher level role, a lot of times they have an idea in mind of the type of person they want to fill that role with. So if they're looking for someone who's going to prioritize the customer, something like that, then politically you would be the person to put in that role because you're known for that. That's kind of your brand, right? If you're a very extroverted, friendly person that loves to build great relationships, and that's what you're known for, that's what first comes to mind, and they're looking for a person like that, they'll get you. Conversely, if you're a more detail-oriented, quality-focused person, technical type person, and that's how you run things, if they want that type of person, they'll get you. So it depends on what your branding is, basically. I hate using that term, but that is the term. It's what you're known for, okay? And that plays a big role in who they get in those higher level roles. Okay. On top of that, you have to have a certain level of maturity. Okay. They can't have you freaking out about things. They can't have you being unprofessional, especially publicly, especially in front of a lot of employees. Things like this. So you have to have your bases covered. You have to know the basics of finance. Okay. Especially, even if it's just to understand the compensation, how they're paying you. Okay. You have to understand finance. Okay, you have to understand the difference between share grants and stock options, things like this. Okay, profit sharing. So there's a lot of sort of mechanical requirements, and then on top of that, it's political. And what helps is if you sort of broadcast yourself. So if you stand for a certain approach or a certain mentality or a certain set of priorities, it helps if people know this. So sort of getting the word out can help. Okay. Okay. Now in between, we had a few other questions here. Let's see. We had Yanos says, I prepared myself for my current job. Thank you and appreciate your great work. You're awesome. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Yanos. That's very nice of you to say. You prepared yourself with my videos. Yes, good. Good. Well, I will soon have my line of clothing out, and you can prepare yourself with that too. The Company's Expert official girdle. Work wonders. Yes, I know. I'm here every Wednesday, or at least I will be from now on. Comedy was my calling, and everyone knows it. Okay, if you have any questions about the hiring process, how to get a job, anything like that, let me know in the chat. That's what I do on these live streams. If this is your first time here, I just answer I try to answer any question that anybody might have. Sometimes I'm unsuccessful. Sometimes I am successful. Sometimes I'm helpful. Sometimes I'm not helpful. But I try my best, and that's what we're here to do. Crystal says, I had a virtual interview on Monday. Any signs to indicate if it went well? Listen, Crystal, the only real indicator to know this is anything you pick up with body language. Okay, there's really no other way. They're not going to tell you one way or another what their thought processes were. Okay, that's sort of like giving away their algorithm, as it were. Okay, if they tell people exactly what they look for and how they think and how they judge things, it's bad for them for multiple reasons. So they're never going to do this. Okay, obviously they're going to give you a result. They'll say yes or no, but until they do that, they're not going to indicate that. They're going to do their best to keep that well hidden. So unless you can really pick up on anything through body language that they tried to hide but really couldn't, that's the only way. Okay, and I just want to say, Crystal, don't play mind games with yourself about thinking like, oh my God, how did it go? Or you do the thing where you wait by the phone. You wait for word on how you did. Don't do that to yourself, okay? Because first of all, it's not helpful. And secondly, it can play havoc with your mental health, okay? So what I recommend is excuse me, I have to cough. It's oh, see, I'm not out of the woods yet. No, what I recommend is you did your interview. That's great. Okay. Now start thinking about the next opportunity. Try and get another interview or another offer, or, start applying for the next thing. Okay. Don't constantly sit and think about the past. You have no control over this. Okay. If they call you, great. If they don't sweat it. Keep moving forward, okay? And that way, you'll always feel hopeful. You'll always feel positive, okay? And you'll get to the end goal of being hired a lot quicker, okay? So yeah, there's no way to tell, and you shouldn't really be trying to figure that out. That's not super helpful. You're never going to know the thought processes of people that make decisions about you. That's just the way it goes. And it's probably good because a lot of people's thought process is just messed up, okay? They make these decisions for a lot of the wrong reasons, and their thought processes are very, shall we say, amateur and scattered. So don't try and figure it out. Just keep doing your part, which is moving forward, getting interviews, getting offers, getting hired. But best of luck to you, Crystal. Sebastian K, you're right. Branding is the key. I'm known for good communication, shareholder management, deliver overachieving financials, and running the operations without interruptions. Okay, well that's that. I mean, if that's true, that sounds like almost the complete package. So, way to go. Make sure that what you didn't mention in there, okay, apart from good communication, is being really good to interact with. Okay, communication is important, but make sure your behavior is very good. Make sure you're approachable. Make sure you project positivity. Okay. Probably the single best trait that you can have that makes people want to work with you is that every time they interact with you, they enjoy it. Now, that can be a hell of a challenge when you've got to deliver bad news, okay? And we all have to deliver bad news occasionally. It's a regular thing. So there's a lot of people out there that can be really pleasant and fun to deal with when it's all smiles and chuckles, when it's all, you're delivering good news and everything's great, right? What's much more of a challenge is having people enjoy dealing with you when it isn't all smiles and chuckles, when you have to do some dirty work, you have to discipline someone, you have to deliver bad news, you have to report bad things. Okay, that takes a little bit more skill to do. Okay, so make sure that you're also delivering that. Yes, Crystal. Yeah, you got it. Okay, Sebastian K, as it's laid in China with a capital C, awesome. I need to step out. Thanks for your content. It helped me a lot during many interviews in the past, and I do improve day by day. Great inspiration. Keep going. Cheers. Thank you so much, Sebastian. It's people here today are being so complimentary so far. It's very flattering. You guys are all awesome. I'm continuing to apply to other jobs, says Crystal. Yes. Keep moving forward, Crystal. And make sure that, I'm sure you already know this, but make sure that you're not just doing one thing, okay? Your job search is composed of different types of activity, okay? You're looking in different places. You're not just applying to posted jobs, you're also tapping networking. That's the huge, huge elephant in the room when it comes to a job search. Make sure that you're doing some kind of networking activities. The vast majority of people who get jobs get them through networking, okay? Some form of networking. Min says, I really love your advices at the previous live stream, and I still remember the previous live stream. I think I was sick at the previous live stream. No, the last live stream I did was the 5th and final episode of Beyond Employment. That was the little mini series there for people that are looking to make money, but not make money as an employee, make money through other means. And the way that we talked about was by having your own business. So if you're interested in that, those live streams are over on my second channel. This channel right here, The Company's Expert 2, that's where they all ended up. And the last episode of that mini-series, I was sick when I did it. I barely got through the live stream. It was really rough. But it ended up being the most popular video on that second channel of mine when I posted it a couple of weeks ago. So that's really cool. Or really embarrassing, depending on how you look at it. But yeah. So thank you for that. I really love your previous live stream and still remember them. The best advice is trying to learn everything and networking. Yes, networking. The more you learn about networking, this will benefit you your entire career and possibly even your entire life outside of your work and your career and your money-making endeavors. Okay? Being able to connect with people, to contact them, to have them want to interact with you, to have them warm to you, that's a very important skill. Okay? So, a lot of people, especially introverts, especially people that have never really done that kind of thing before, it is totally to your advantage to take your first steps into that world. Okay? And the other thing I want to say is that, if you are an introverted type person, okay, like me, this doesn't involve doing things that you hate. Okay, you don't have to go to a networking event and schmooze with a bunch of people. You don't have to do any of that if that's not your bag. Okay, you can do it all on social networking from your phone or from your computer or your device at home. Okay, so you can be an introvert, you can do this stuff. And you can do it your own way. That's the great thing about this. Okay, so the more you learn about the principles, if you know the principles, then you can execute this your way. Okay, playing to your strengths and the activities that you find tolerable, and not the stuff that you see on TV or in Hollywood movies that are silly, ridiculous, and unrealistic. Joe says, I know this is to get hired segment, but how can you motivate employees without using money? Well, Joe, we already talked about the main way to do it is, first of all, if you're talking about a team, like a small number of employees, and you're, say, the supervisor or the boss, a great way to do it is to talk to an employee one-on-one and compliment them and say, like, look, you did an excellent job, yesterday or whatever it was, way to go. A lot of people, they don't do this work as well as you did. That's awesome. I want to say, you're on fire. You're doing really well. So keep up the good work, right? Something like that, something of that nature. Okay. People really appreciate that. You treat someone like a human being. Okay, that costs absolutely nothing. Well, I wouldn't say absolutely nothing. It takes up a few minutes of your time. Okay. If you're a team leader and you have, say, 8 employees under you, okay, and you want to motivate your team and you want to get them to want to work for you and warm to you and not resist your instruction, okay, that's a great way to do it. Talk to them individually, really make them feel like they're awesome, like they're worth $1 million. Okay, make them feel that you appreciate them. Call them out on stuff that you think that they're very proud of and they feel like they're not being noticed for. Okay, and that is worth a ton. Okay, I have seen in small businesses where they retain a lot of the more talented employees. Even though they can't pay as much compensation, they retain those people by treating them well. This is one part of it, okay? If you're a manager, another part of it is extending them courtesies. Like, for example, if they request a sick day, your immediate answer is sure, no problem. Take as much time as you need and come back when you're ready. Not a problem, Little things like that, people really appreciate, as opposed to what typically happens where someone has, they call in sick and they risk facing the wrath of their boss or some criticism, whether it's spoken or unspoken, right? Over that type of thing. Things like this. If somebody wants a shift change, if somebody has some other kind of request, say, sure, not a problem, not a problem. For you, you've definitely earned it. Make them feel really good about it, okay? That can motivate people, and that costs nothing but your time and effort. Excuse me. Okay, now, sometimes it's easier said than done. If you're working in a McDonald's, everybody's unmotivated, nobody cares about anything. And the work really, really sucks, and the turnover is 100% per year or something like that. It can be a bit of a challenge, but all things being equal, that type of behavior will be appreciated to some degree, and it costs very, very little. It's hard to trust employees. The instinct for a lot of managers is to maintain tight control, and if somebody has a request, you deny it, right? If it interferes directly with their work, right? That's the instinct that most people have, especially if they've never been to business school and they don't understand these things. And you always do get some bad employees that even if you trust them and you give them all kinds of privileges, they will still basically screw you, and they'll be lazy and they'll take everything they can get and give nothing back. There are a few people like that, but the vast majority of people will respond positively. Okay, what typically happens is you treat people like crap and they leave, right? Sometimes sooner, sometimes later, or if they leave later, the immediate quality of their work goes right down, right? So you win, you lose in the end anyway, right? So this is well known. It's just that it sounds very nice to say this. It actually takes a lot more courage and effort to actually do this, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. They certainly don't do it as often as you hear people talk about it. Okay? But that's the reality. Anyway, I could go on forever. These are the sort of management type questions that I like, but we're here to talk about employment, so we're gonna sort of stick to that. Where was I here? I lost where I was. Okay, here we go. So that was from Joe. Okay, Sebastian says, boxes checked. Check. The most of your points are in communications combined. Yes. Yes, that's what we were talking about. Crystal says, cool. MA says, was contacted for an expat role with salary in dollars, I guess. 6 months later, the recruiter sent me an advert for the same role, but for the office in Africa. Don't use D when you mean the, like just write THE. That's better English. Salary is 0.3 of the expat, and it's in local currency. Okay. I think the role was localized because what? DY? Did I have an office in my country? The role was localized because they have an office in my country. I feel I will be shortchanged and that the initial role was never filled. Okay. Do you have a question, MA, that comes after that? If you have a question, just maybe ask the question and I will be happy to answer. Vincent says, hello from Indonesia. That's Jakarta, right? Capital Jakarta. Love your content. Well, thank you for saying so, Vincent. You're awesome. Joe says, thanks so much. Thank you, Joe. Min, if I work at a foreign company, those foreigners. If I work at a foreign company, how can I be eligible to pitch the ideas to improve the company, even though I am not a high-level executive? In my country, they are forbidden and sent to jail for 3 years. Okay? You work at a foreign company. How are you eligible to pitch ideas to improve the company? Well, it's not the role of employees to pitch ideas to improve the company, usually. You can. You would tell your immediate boss. You could even tell a boss that's a couple of levels higher, I suppose. Nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, they call the shots. They can run that operation the way they want, rightly or wrongly. Okay? They can run that company right into the ground if they want to. That's the position they're in. You could have the answer all along that would result in prosperity and success for them, but the way the situation is that they can choose to ignore you and they can run it right into the ground. That's just the situation by virtue of the fact that they're in those roles and you're further down. So there's no real protocol to be able to pitch something. You can just go and talk to your boss, or if you would prefer their boss, or if you would prefer their boss. And if you can interact with them and say, look, do you have a couple of minutes sometime at a time of your convenience? I'd very much like to talk with you about a couple of ideas I had. And, if you have a couple of moments to spare, thank you very much. And if they say, sure, then go and talk to them. And, pitch it. If you're in the same building, you could stop by their office. If their office door is open, you can just sort of knock and say, hello, you got a couple minutes? You just got a minute? And then just say your thing. And that's, I mean, you don't need permission to do this. That's following protocol, okay, all over the world, right? You know, as long as you're not talking about, if you go to a boss that's a couple of levels up, as long as you're not talking about your immediate boss behind their back, okay, that would break a bit of protocol. Okay, for something like that, you would first address it with your immediate boss. That's, even though that might be uncomfortable, that's the proper way of doing things. You give them a chance to speak to whatever it is, okay, before you take it above their head. Okay, so that's how these things work. Okay, but yeah, you don't need any permission to do this. Now, they can choose to be to have a positive response, or they could respond negatively, right? Okay, that's up to them. They could be totally unreceptive to what you have to say. You have no control over that. Okay, but there's nothing inappropriate or unreasonable about approaching them in that way. MA says, what should I do? Okay, so this was, I'm having a little problem, MA, understanding precisely your situation. There's an expat role. 6 months later, they sent you an advert, but they want to pay you in local currency. The role was localized because they have an office in your country. I feel that you will be shortchanged. The initial role was never filled. Well, look, I mean, okay, if it was me, and I don't fully understand the details, but if it was me, I'm not hearing a real reason why you wouldn't pursue this, okay? I don't see that there's any harm in pursuing this opportunity. Maybe you get to the point where they offer you the role, and then you know exactly what you're dealing with. You understand the work conditions, you understand the compensation, you know, if there's any performance pay or any, you know, whatever, you understand that, right? I don't think there's any harm in pursuing this. If they don't offer it to you, then it's moot. If they do offer it to you, then you know precisely what you're dealing with. I would get to that point before I make any judgments on whether it's something you should pursue or not. Okay, that's just me. That's how I would handle it. So that's all I can really say. Hopefully that makes sense. Like, yes, you like any job search, you risk your time being wasted. You know, yes, you do that. That's something that you have to be okay with if you're going to try and pursue job opportunities, right? It's like it's exactly the same as the sales process. If you're a salesperson, you know, if you're going to try and pursue a lead in the hopes that it might result in a sale, you have to be willing to have your time and your effort wasted pursuing that, right? But that's a risk you resign yourself to, right? So same with trying to get a job. Okay, it may not look super promising. There may be a couple of red flags. You're not really sure. It still could be a good job, but you know, it might not be. But you won't know until you pursue it all the way. Now, if you're already gainfully employed and you know you're doing fine, then fair enough. You might want to say, you know what, it doesn't really make any sense for me to pursue this. But if you are looking for a job, you don't have a source of income right at the moment, then the way I'm looking at it is that you're not really giving up anything to pursue this other than your time and energy. And unless you've got many other promising opportunities lined up, I would pursue this as far as it goes and then make a decision. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Dukem. Hey, I know you. You've been here before. Dukem. Duc. It reminds me of French. Duc. Le Duc. M. Can you talk about your Patreon? What are differences between the levels? Do we get to ask you questions on this platform? If not, how do we ask you questions? Okay, so here's the deal. I had some videos that went viral a couple of years ago, and in those videos, I was advertising Patreon because not knowing very much about YouTube or any of this stuff to begin with, this was the thing that everyone seemed to be doing. So I set up a Patreon account. And I have a few Patreon members, and those people are awesome. In the last couple of years, I have been pushing it less. And instead, I've tried the YouTube membership route because YouTube came out with that. You could join the channel, and so you can do that. There's not really many differences between the tiers other than the amount that you donate on Patreon. That's how that kind of works. On YouTube, on the channel members, there's only one level. I only have one level. I haven't really made this huge universe of different things you can do. But what you do is you get priority, because if you're a Patreon or if you're a YouTube channel member, I can see that you're a Patreon or a YouTube channel member. And what I do is I put extra effort to answer questions and stuff. Within reason, okay? Within reason. You can't ask me like a question every day and expect a prompt response. That's not very efficient. But if you have one question, perhaps one question a month or one question a week or whatever, somewhere around there, I will do my best to answer those. So that's how those have been going. So hopefully that answers that. The thing about if you join as a channel member, you get members only videos. So that's the other thing that I have. So yeah. There you go. Thank you, MA. Joe says, the reason I asked earlier is because I work in a McDonald's type environment and it's rough. It's tough. Yeah. Okay. That's the thing. Like if you're in an environment where, I don't know, I think McDonald's is like minimum wage or close to minimum wage. And, you have like a lot of teenagers there and, this kind of thing. It's hard to get people really excited about the work that they do. But what you can do is you can try and create a very positive environment. Now, that's easier said than done, but it is possible to do. And just be terribly nice to everybody. And, once again, not always possible, but you try and push in that direction. Okay? And the great thing about this is that apart from your time and effort, it costs nothing. And it does have a profound effect on people. Okay, that's all you can do. You only have a certain amount of influence in that position. But that's the direction to push. And look at it this way, okay? If you try and do this, and, maybe it's not always easy and you don't always get great results, you are developing some incredible skills that will help you through your career when hopefully you grow beyond the McDonald's environment, okay? There are people in, more professional sort of areas, shall we say, that are making a lot more money that still don't have this part down. And that's actually the biggest thing that's holding them back. There's a lot of entitled, unpleasant, prickly people out there that when you interact with them, you walk away thinking, God, I don't ever want to deal with that person ever again, right? Now you can imagine, it's kind of hard to rise up in the world if everyone you encounter feels that way about you, right? But you won't be one of those people if you're developing this skill and you're learning to do it and it's starting to come natural for you. Oh, so hopefully that makes sense. But it's I respect you for trying to do it in that environment, but it's still the right thing to do. So yes, best of luck to you, Joe. Min says, thank you very much. Happy December. Yes, happy December. Happy December. And thank you, Joe. You are awesome. And there you go. So I had a question while we're waiting for the next question. I logged on this morning to YouTube, and somebody had asked a question, on one of my videos for like how to answer job interview questions. And they were saying like, okay, this is great, but the problem I have is that I'm an immigrant and this person was trying to come into the United States of America. I guess they were there. And they were saying, well, my problem is with English. You know, it's great how you answer the question like this, but how do I get good at answering it in English? Okay. Now, this person was writing a comment on one of my videos, and in the process of writing this comment, they could barely string a sentence together. They're making all kinds of typos and all this kind of stuff. Here's what I would say about that. First of all, the way to get good at any language, first of all, is to practice it, okay? Secondly, if you're going to practice it, try and practice the correct form of it, okay? Now, the great thing about the internet now for most people is that spell checkers, grammar checkers, they're built into a lot of apps and things. Like I think Google Chrome has, I believe it's had a spell checker in it for a very long time. And other browsers, they've built that right into the browser. So you're sort of getting a spell checker for free, right? So whenever you enter things like into comment boxes and things like that, it's underlining the typos and, you know, the incomplete sentences and things like this. Okay? So number one, if you're already on the internet and you're writing in English, you're watching English videos, okay, and you're writing comments, take the opportunity to fix up your English and learn the proper form of English, okay? That's kind of the first thing I would recommend. Secondly, speak English as much as you possibly can. If your goal is to speak English very well, then you work towards it. Practice makes perfect, and learning languages is no exception. I've learned one foreign language that I'm fluent in. I've learned bits of another two. You know, so that's how you learn these things. And practice makes perfect. But if you don't practice, you're never just going to magically get good at it, okay? So use the tools that are available to you, okay? And watch a lot of like English content, okay? And preferably good English content where they're speaking properly. They're not speaking a lot of slang, you know, kind of like me. I'm not, you know, I don't speak particularly good English. You know, but consume that type of content and then practice it, and you will get good very quickly. There's some people that I've worked with that have learned foreign languages. They've learned English, which is not their native language, very quickly, and they can speak it very well with a very minimal accent. And that's just through effort and practice. Other people I've seen when it comes to other languages, the only one I can really detect is English, because that's my native language. They've taken, you know, they've been in a country that has English as its primary language. They've been there for 20 years and they still can't speak it very well, and they still have a super thick accent. And I'm not sure what the problem is. I suspect it's just they're not really trying to work on these things. And you get what you put into it. So it's just that simple. You know, a lot of people that they say, well, you know, I'm good at job interviews, but what's holding me back is the English. Well, yes, you're right. That is an extra hurdle to overcome, but you have to work on it. Okay. It's not just going to magically get better. Like anything else, you have to work on it. And I know there's a lot of YouTube channels. I'm sure there's a lot of other resources on the internet that can help you with that. Okay. But you need to take the effort, okay, to do it. Okay, Sea Dragon 911 or 911. Sea Dragon 911 says, quick question? Question mark. I had 3 interviews already. Is it okay to reach out by email or to call to find out what's the next step, or should I wait until the recruiter reaches out? Sea Dragon 911. First of all, it doesn't matter. Okay. You don't have to ask anyone's permission to reach out to them. Yes, it's perfectly fine. What you do, you see, ideally, you would do that in the interview. First of all, okay, I have to say this first of all. Ideally, at the end of a job interview, one of the last things you say is you ask them, so what's the next step? You know, am I going to hear from you, or how does it work? You ask them this, okay? So when you leave the interview, you know exactly how things are going to work. You know that if you're hired, they will contact you within 3 business days. If you don't hear from them beyond, say, 3 business days, the answer is probably no. Or you'll know that, okay, they will tell you in 2 days or in 2 weeks. Either way, you will get an email or you will get a phone call. Like that kind of thing, right? You leave the interview knowing what the next step is, okay? Now, if you didn't do that, that's fine. What you can do is the next day or in 2 business days, you can send an email to the recruiter or the interviewer, whoever was interviewing you, if you know their email address or if you are connected to them on LinkedIn or any other messaging platform, and just say, hello, it's whatever your name is. I'm just following up on the interview that I did with you yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was. Just wondering if there's been any news. That's all. Thank you very much. Have yourself a great day. And then your name. Okay, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. You don't have to feel awkward about doing it, okay? Sometimes it may do a little bit of good following up because it might signal to them that you care, you're passionate about that role, and you're really eager to see how it's going because you care, okay? But I would only do that if it's a job that you're really, really interested in, like it's a dream job. Okay. Most of the time, you don't have to follow up. They're going to let you know one way or another. Okay. And like I said earlier in the live stream, your focus should be not sitting by the phone and worrying and wondering about what happened. You should be focused on the next opportunity. Try to get more interviews. Try to get more job opportunities. Okay. Focus on that instead of worrying about how something went. Okay. That's what I'll say about it. But absolutely no problem in following up. Joe says, how do you practice answering on-the-spot questions quickly and tactically? You mean tactfully? Well, you do mock interviews. You do practice job interviews. Okay, first of all, there's sort of 3 levels of getting good at this. Okay, first off is you do research on how to answer job interview questions, okay? Some of that's going to be maybe going on the internet, getting answers, okay? Some of that's going to be working out for yourself what your situation is, okay? So if somebody asks you, tell me about a time where you had a disagreement with your boss, right? Maybe you can't really think of a moment off the top of your head. You're going to have to put some thought into this, right? So you work out what your answers are going to be and you start practicing them by yourself, okay? That's the first stage. Once you're pretty good at that part, maybe a week or so you've spent on that stuff, then the next step is to do practice interviews with a friend or family member, okay? That really helps. I've talked about this extensively. Just grab a friend or a family member, whoever is around, okay, and say, look, can you help me rehearse for job interviews? Can I get you to ask me a bunch of questions and I'm going to answer? It'll be practice. Okay. You can either give them a list of questions or you can say, you go off and go on the internet and just get some questions and then ask me them. Pretend like you're the interviewer. And we're going to do this just like a job interview. Okay. And you're not going to just do this once, okay? You're going to do this over and over and over again. If there's more people around, great. Have all of them do mock interviews with you, okay? Do this over a couple of weeks. And it's through the repetition of it that you're going to get good. You're also starting to feel a little bit nervous because now you're doing it with another person. That's good. That's also simulating the conditions under which you're going to be doing a job interview. So it's great. This is a good training. Excuse me. Then the third and final phase of this is to actually go out and do job interviews. Okay. The more job interviews you do, the better you get. Okay. And after about, say, 10 job interviews, you're going to start to see things repeat themselves. You're going to see, okay, I know how this goes. They invite me here. This is how that works. This is what it looks like. They ask me a bunch of questions. Yes, I've heard them all before, right? We do the handshake thing. We do the pleasantries and all that, right? So you do those 3 phases, you will be a pro at this. You will not really get nervous. You will have self-confidence. Okay, and that's what you do. And that's all there is to it, really. Okay, so that was so hopefully that makes sense, Joe. That was from Joe. Connor McGregor says, how do I answer, tell me something about you that is not on your resume? You say, certainly, what would you like to know? That's how you answer that question. That's a bullshit question from a recruiter who doesn't know how to interview somebody. That's what that is. See, your resume is your professional document. It describes the most relative information about yourself that's relevant, that's pertinent to you working as an employee. Okay. The only other thing that is relevant to deciding whether you're going to be an employee or not, apart from your background check, with references and stuff, is your social skills, your personal skills, what you're like as a person. So here they are asking you about neither. Okay. It's like you being a professional sports player, like you're a professional basketball player, and they're wanting to pick you for the pro team, right? And as part of your evaluation, they say, okay, here's a piece of fabric. I need you to sew me a jacket. Okay, go. I mean, what's that got to do with anything? Absolutely nothing. It's completely irrelevant, right? So somebody's saying, tell me something random that has nothing to do with this job or any previous jobs or anything relevant about your career. Go, right? I mean, that's idiotic. It's just idiotic. These types of questions are asked by fools who don't know how to interview anyone. And you only get these questions asked at very low-level jobs, okay? No manager or executive has ever gone to a job where some recruiter asks them something as idiotic as this, because it's insulting, right? It's like saying, okay, thank you very much for coming in. We're interviewing you for the management, training position. So tell me, what's your favorite number? And then you say something and they say, okay, great. What's your favorite color? Okay, right? You see, these are irrelevant, right? How can you make a decision about whether somebody is suitable in any meaningful way based on this? The other thing I've seen, and not to go on about this forever, but the other thing I've seen is that some people have master's degrees in psychology, and they end up being recruiters, right? And this is sort of the very latest in this kind of pseudoscience called recruitment and selection, where they ask you these sort of more psychological questions. And it's supposed to reveal all kinds of, things about your personality that in some way, supposedly, allegedly, indicate whether you're suitable for a certain position or not, which is complete crap, of course. And then they come up with questions like this, and then they consider themselves so prescient. There is no right answer. It's idiotic. They've got smart people thinking that I have to come up with an answer to something like this so I can pass the question. Okay. If they ask you something super general and it isn't simply another form of tell me about yourself, where you would answer with material off your resume, okay? The answer by default is going to be, sure, what would you like to know? Ask for more information. Okay, Duke M says, haven't worked for 3 years. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Duke M. I am a mid-level engineer, but HR doesn't like a large gap. Should I take an entry-level position just to get my foot back in the door? No, you shouldn't, Duke M. What you should do is get a job through networking, okay? Because if you go through networking, stupid things like work gaps don't matter, okay? Work gaps are only a problem for recruiters, and recruiters, no offense to the good recruiters out there, but I'd say 80% of recruiters who are out there don't have a clue what they're doing, and they don't have an idea how to assess somebody. That's why they've only been given responsibility over lower level positions where it doesn't really matter who you get, because the belief is that one person is as good as the next, right? So don't worry about it. You and I both know that if you are a fully qualified engineer, and maybe you even have some years of work experience under your belt, not only are you qualified, but you have proven yourself by being employed and retaining your job for a while in a organization, okay? And that has demonstrated your worth, okay, and your capabilities. Now, just because you've been out of work for a little while, does that mean that you are no longer a capable engineer? Of course not. This stuff, if it does fade a little bit, it comes back the first week you return to work, right? You know what I mean? We all know this, okay? You are employable, you are valuable, okay? A work gap doesn't matter. Everybody knows this. The only people who don't know it is people who have no clue about how engineering work goes, which are namely recruiters. They're not engineers. They've never worked with engineers. They don't know the first thing about doing that kind of work. And they are completely ill-equipped to judge whether one candidate is a better engineer than another candidate. How would they know? They don't. The only thing that they can do is they can see your personality, right? So if you go to the interview and you immediately get upset and angry over the slightest little thing and storm out of the interview, they can maybe conclude that, you might have an attitude issue. But beyond that, they have no idea if you're a better engineer than the next person, right? Okay. So what you do is you bypass recruiters altogether, okay? Because they're like the gatekeepers standing between you and your gainful employment, okay? And you go instead to other engineers, to engineering managers, to people like this, to hiring managers who hire engineers and work with them. You go directly to them, okay? Now, if you don't know how to do this, you've got some research to do, okay? Learn about getting a job through networking. If you look at the numbers, and you don't have to take this from me, go and verify, corroborate this separately, okay? Most people don't actually get their job through a recruiter. This is surprising to a lot of people because recruiters are the most visible. It's the default option for a lot of people. Answer a job ad, interview with a recruiter, get hired. That's the default thing for a lot of people. It's actually not the way that the majority of people get their job. The majority of people get their job through some form of networking. Maybe they happen to know someone who put in a good word for them with someone else who was hiring for an engineering position. That's one possibility. Another possibility is they approached a company or a specific hiring manager within a company and said, look, I don't know if you're hiring right now, okay? But I can tell you this much. I'm a great engineer, and I'm passionate about this kind of work. And I know that your company does some really exciting work in that area. So listen, if ever you're looking for an engineer, here's my card, here's my information. Please give me a call. I would love to work with you. Thank you and have a nice day, okay? Now, if you contacted, say, 800 managers over the course of, say, 3 months, and basically gave them that exact template message, okay? Most of those managers, they're just not hiring right now, okay? So it just doesn't lead to anything. But a few of them, just out of random probability, happen to be hiring an engineer right now. Okay, they're looking for a person right now. And here's somebody that just landed right in their lap, and they were the only person that was passionate enough about doing this that got right in front of them and made a case for themselves. Okay, And already that puts you head and shoulders above all the other people that would have applied for a job, because you're the only one that was passionate enough and had the initiative enough to do this. And that signals certain things. It signals that, first of all, you have initiative, that, you really want the job. You're not just looking for anything. You're looking for this, right? And that's the type of person that they want. Okay. And if they then look a little bit deeper at you and they see that you have all the technical requirements, there you go. If they enjoyed their interaction with you, they found it pleasant to deal with you, they've already gotten a free sample of what you are to work like, or to work with. Okay. So that's another form of networking. Okay. And when you do it this way, it doesn't matter if you're changing careers. It doesn't matter if you have a work gap. It doesn't matter if you have a disability. It doesn't matter about all that stuff. Okay. It's a way to bypass all of those things. The only person you're having to impress is the person that's hiring the engineers, which is usually some form of engineer or engineering manager. Okay. You don't have to impress a recruiter. You don't have to try and relate to the stupid questions that they ask. You can just do this. Okay. So if this is all new for you, you've got some research to do. Okay. Don't just take my word for this. Go and verify this. Now, yes, I have a course. I got a course, blah, blah, blah. I'm plugging a course. Okay, where is it? Get Hired. There we go. I talk about everything in that course. I talk about all the job interview stuff, but I also talk about the networking route and a couple of different options there, and specifically how you can do it. Okay. If that's of any interest to you, I do have that course, but go and learn about this stuff one way or another. Okay. It will be to your advantage. Okay. I've gotten off my soapbox for today. Okay, how do you say Kita? Kita Moira? Thoughts on having the question answers such as tell me about yourself in front of you, sheet of paper, iPhone notes during your interview, or should you always have them memorized? Yes, you should have them memorized. I don't want to say like it's the instant kiss of death or something if you have it written down, but no, you should really memorize it. Okay, like practice. There's only 10 questions really that you have to memorize what you're going to say. There really isn't that many of them. So it's not asking a lot to memorize the answers to the most common questions. Okay. It's just that simple. I'm just going to leave it at that. Just put in the work and memorize them. It'll go far better for you. Gutty. Hey, I'm missing my thing that tells me how many people are watching. I'm going to see if I can get that on here. If you just bear with me a second, viewer count. Interesting. That's very interesting. It is not showing up for some reason. I'm just going to see if I can drag it up. No. Technical problems. Oh, things are being weird. Okay, abort. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I've had some technical problems with the software I'm using for a live chat. What I'm using is Streamlabs 1.12, 1.2, 1.12.3. That's what I'm using. And it just updated itself like 1 minute before I went live, which you gotta love. And it had some issues. Last live stream I did, it actually booted me off the live stream like halfway through. So I've been a bit antsy around this ever since. So we'll see. Anyway. Gutty says, I'm from India. What do I say when I'm asked, take me through your CV? Well, I would have thought that would be obvious. If you have a resume, when they say CV, I'm assuming they mean resume, right? Because a CV, curriculum vitae, is technically something where you write down your academic works. Like if you've got, if you're an academic and you've had published articles, okay, that you list them all on a CV. That's what a CV is. If you're looking for a job and you're giving them a document that describes mainly your work experience, your previous jobs, that's called a resume, okay? So if you've given them your resume and they say, take me through your resume or through your CV, you do precisely that. You say, okay, well, as you can see, I have this education, this qualification. I got it, 10 years ago, whatever. And I immediately started working at this company where I worked in this role for 2 years. I did this type of work. Then I moved over to this other company and did this type of work for 3 years, or, whatever it is. And that brings me, and I'm still employed there, but I'm looking for something more. And that's what brings me here today. There you go. It's pretty much the answer to the question, tell me about yourself, right? This cliched question that feeble-minded people ask as the first thing in the interview. It's usually the icebreaker, okay? It's the most cliched question that they have to draw from. And it's so general that a lot of people don't know how to answer it. The way you answer it is you talk to them about the material that's on your resume, because what's on your resume, they've already seen your resume and they still invited you in for an interview. So that means that there's nothing on your resume that's disqualifying you. So you don't want to talk off the top of your head. You don't want to say random things because you have no idea what's going to get you eliminated. Okay? As I said in my video where I talk about that question, I've seen people get eliminated from the running because they admitted that they were fans of a certain sports team. And unbeknownst to them, the hiring manager was a fan of an opposing sports team. And so they're like, no, I don't want to work with someone that is rooting for that other team. We wouldn't get along, right? It wouldn't be a good working relationship. So they're not going to say this to you, but they will just say, oh, I'm sorry, you just weren't a fit, right? So you have no idea what they're going to eliminate you for, right? You could say like, well, I'm a great salesperson. And really the hiring manager is thinking, I don't like salespeople. I'm an engineer. I like detail-oriented people. I don't like a bunch of fake, fast-talking people. So no, I'm not going to hire a salesperson type. I want an engineer type, right? You have no idea what's going to eliminate you. So you say things that are on your resume because that material is safe, especially when they've asked such an open-ended question that, you could say absolutely anything, right? You have no idea what specifically they're looking for. So you start with the basics. This is who I am. I have this education. I worked here. I did this. I worked there. I did that. I'm looking for this. That's why I'm here, right? It's a great introduction to you, okay? And if they say, take me through your resume, okay, you want to try and summarize your resume in about 45 seconds, okay? Give or take. You don't want to be talking for 10 minutes, giving them every little detail about everything on your resume, okay? Just give them a nice summary. Because at the end of the day, you're not at the job interview to talk about previous jobs you had. You're at the job interview to explain to them how you have everything that they're looking for this job. That's why you're there. So time spent in the interview where you're talking about things other than that is kind of wasted time, right? If they say, tell me about your family or tell me about your hobbies, it's really a waste of time. You want to answer the question and be polite, but you don't want to spend 10 minutes talking about your hobbies and what sports you play. You want to spend that time saying, look, I have this qualification and I have experience in doing that type of work and I have developed this skill that you're looking for, right? That's the type of thing that you want to be saying when you're there. Okay? So hopefully that long, rambling answer makes sense. Kita says 38 people watching. Excellent. Thank you, Kita. Kita says, I'm sure you have a video on this, but what answer would you give for what are your strengths and weaknesses? Okay, that is two separate questions, really, right? They're asking about your strengths and they're asking about your weaknesses. Okay, so short answer to answering what are your strengths, okay? Here's the thing. A lot of people will have the temptation to say things about themselves that they consider strengths, okay? Here's the problem. You have no idea what the interviewer is going to regard as strengths. For example, let's say you're up for a sales job, okay? Now, let's pretend that you are a technical, detail-oriented person. You take pride in your work. You double-check everything 3 times, okay, or 2 times, 3 times, triple-check it. You very rarely make a mistake, and you're very proud of that, okay? So you say, when they say, what are your strengths? You say, I'm a very meticulous person. I make sure that everything is done properly, and I take the time necessary. Meanwhile, they don't regard that as a strength. They regard that as a weakness. They're looking for a salesperson. So they don't want someone who's going to take 4 hours over the paperwork. They want someone who's going to do the paperwork quickly and then get out and start talking to customers and enjoy talking to customers. That's what they wanted to hear, right? Now, you don't know what they want to hear. So here's what you do. In the job posting where they've said, we're looking for someone who has this, right? They've said what they're looking for, okay? So what you do when you're asked, what are your strengths, is you say, well, you essentially go down that list. Well, my strengths. First of all, I have 2 years experience in this, okay? I also have this skill. These are things that they're looking for. I also have this educational qualification, right? All of these enable to be a really good salesperson. You can keep going down that list. You say how you satisfy each one. Now, maybe a couple of those, you don't actually meet them fully. You don't actually have, say, 5 years experience in something like they're looking for, but you have 1 year experience. So you say, well, I have 1 year experience in this. Now, okay, I have worked with people that have 10 years experience in it, and they may have a lot more experience, but I feel that I can really hold my own when it comes to this. I feel totally comfortable doing it. So doing that type of activity is not a problem for me, right? So you're putting their mind at ease that none of the mechanical requirements are going to be an issue for you. Okay? That's how you answer the strength part. The weakness part is a little bit different, okay? Recruiters are looking for red flags. They're looking for reasons to eliminate you. What better question than to say, what would be a red flag about you? Why shouldn't we hire you? If there was one reason why we shouldn't hire you, what would that be? Right? So they ask you this, and you just dish. You give it to them. Well, first of all, I'm an alcoholic. Secondly, I've got a very bad temper. Thirdly, I hate doing sales. I hate it. I will not do any job that requires sales, right? So you say all this stuff, and they say, well, thank you very much. We'll get back to you. And then meanwhile, they've eliminated you because you were looking good until you opened your mouth and gave them reasons not to hire you. So that's why they love this question. Okay. So how do you answer it? Well, here's what you do. You don't actually give any kind of real weakness. Okay. Don't listen to recruiters when they tell you that, the way to answer this question is just to be completely honest and give the recruiter an honest weakness and then say how you're working on it, right? There maybe are a few recruiters out there that actually think like that, which is great. But I can tell you that the vast majority of recruiters don't think like that. They're a lot more petty. And what they'll do is they'll simply, when they hear your weakness, they'll just eliminate you based on that and say, well, you're not a fit. Okay. So you answer the question by giving an unavoidable side effect of something that you do that's good. Okay. So you would say something along the lines of, look, I'm a great salesperson. I love doing sales. If I have a weakness, it's because I enjoy talking to customers and building relationships. And unfortunately, that can maybe leave too little time to do all the paperwork fully and completely. Okay. But it's okay, because what I found is that I can overcome that problem by spending a little time with my boss where I hand in my paperwork in person and they have the opportunity to ask me any questions right there and then. If they need more information, I give it to them verbally they're happy, I'm happy, and that way I can maintain the high levels of customer interaction that I do. And that's what makes me a great salesperson, right? So it's an unavoidable side effect of doing something good. That's what you pass off as a weakness. Okay? I have done videos on all of these. I've given you a lot better explanation in my videos, a lot more coherent. So check out my videos on, best answer to what is your weakness, best answer to what is your strengths. Check those out. Okay? But that's, in a nutshell, how you'd answer those. Good question, Kita. Joe, I'm hopping off. Thanks for your advice, and I'll try to provide feedback. Okay, great. Best of luck to you, Joe. Brandon Klein. I struggle with name a time questions. Can you give some help on those? I know one of them is name a time you had a disagreement with your boss or coworker, management, and how did you resolve it? Thanks. Okay, those are called behavioral questions, Brandon. They ask you a question where you answer with a story from your past. Okay? Tell me about a time when, you were late for work. What did you do? Right? Tell me about a time when your boss commended you for creative thinking or creative work. Go. Right? Your answer is going to be a unique story from your past. Okay? It's not going to be a cookie cutter question. Those are called behavioral questions. The reason they ask them is because if you say you behaved a certain way in the past, they're making the assumption that if they hire you and they put you in that situation again, you will behave that exact same way again. Okay? That's the reason why they're asking the question. So number one thing to know is that whatever story you tell, make sure it's accurate in that it's the way you would still behave today. Okay? For example, if they say, tell me about a time you had a disagreement with your boss, you could tell a story about when you were, when you were in high school and you got your first job ever and you had to work at McDonald's or something, and you had a really amateur boss and you had a really crappy job and you really didn't know anything much about being an employee. It was all new to you. And so you had an argument with your boss and you handled it really badly. And that's what you did back then. But you've learned, you've matured, and you know that, okay, that's not how you would handle a disagreement now, right? Okay, so don't tell the McDonald's story, okay, if you would not handle it the same way today. That's the first thing you need to know. Secondly, the way to prepare for these types of questions is planning, okay? Go home, think of 10 stories, okay? 10 stories that are notable from your past jobs, your career experience, okay? Things where you had conflicts with people, things where you interacted with customers, things where you solved a problem, things where things went really, really well, things like a story where things went really, really poorly, and maybe you tried to recover from it and partially recovered. Things like that, okay? Practice these. Have these on the tip of your mind. Practice telling these stories in like a very compact way, like 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Okay? You could look up something called the STAR format. Situation, task, action, result. That's usually the format in which you tell these stories. It's a very compact way of telling the entire story in like 30 seconds. You don't want to be taking 10 minutes to tell a story in a job interview. Okay? So rehearse these 10 stories. Okay? Then, when you go to a job interview, any behavioral question that they ask you, no matter what it is, okay, you pull out one of these 10 stories that you have on the tip of your mind that you've rehearsed, okay? For example, if they ask you, tell me about a time you had a disagreement with your boss, you could tell them about the time that something went wrong and you tried to recover from it. If they say, tell us about a time where you learned something on the job, you could tell that same story. Tell us about a time when something failed and you had to handle that. What did you do? You pull out that same story. You see, a lot of these stories are answers to multiple questions, right? So if you've got 10 stories that are rehearsed, that are up here, you can tell them in a compact way. You don't have to think on your feet when you've got strangers staring at you. Just pull out one of these stories. They're all rehearsed and they're ready to go. Okay. And that's how you can answer practically any behavioral question satisfactorily. And you don't have to worry about being asked something that you've never thought of before. Okay. Once again, I've done a couple of videos on behavioral questions, so check out my videos for a little bit more of a coherent answer and complete answer on how to do that. Incidentally, all of these are also in my course too. So if you want to get the whole thing from beginning to end, how to get hired, every part of it, check out that course. There's a link in the description. So hopefully that makes sense to Brandon Klein. Kita says, I passed my first interview and will have my second with a higher position executive. Should I prep for it the same way I did as my first interview, or is there something different that executives look for? First of all, I've done a video on how to prepare for a second interview, so check that out. Some of the main things to remember are that the second interview, they're going to go deeper, okay? What a lot of people do is they don't prepare very much for the second interview. They let their guard down a little bit on the second interview because now they're going back and talking to people they've already talked to. It's starting to feel like these people are friends. The pressure's not quite as high. So they let their guard down. And that's the worst thing you can do, okay? Because they've taken a preliminary look at you. They liked what they saw. Now they're going to go deeper, okay? And so you have to prepare even more for the second interview. Now, as far as what executives look for, executives tend to care less about, like generally speaking, they tend to care less about, sort of mechanical requirements, and they care more about your attitude, your ambition, your worldview, and your outlook, okay? They care about more of that stuff, big stuff, okay? If you go to the interview and you don't know what the company does, that's going to be a problem. If you go to the second interview and you don't understand how this role relates to the rest of the company, that's going to be a problem. Okay? So have more awareness of the culture of the company. You've been there once before, usually, for the first interview. You know how they dress, you know how they behave, things like this. Go in there looking and feeling like you're one of them, okay? That really helps. Don't go in there and look and act like a fish out of water. They're all in suits and you're there in a t-shirt, or vice versa, okay? You want to go in there and feel like you're one of them, okay? Executives care about the big picture. They don't really care about nitty-gritty little details. They care about how passionate you are for the job. They care about your social skills. They care about your communication skills. They care about how relatable you are. If they enjoy dealing with you, your people skills, that's going to be a big deal. Even if you're going for like a technical type job, okay, that a lot of times helps. And that's all I can really say. I mean, there's many different types of executive and many different individuals. So beyond that, try to find out everything you can about these people before you get to the interview. If you know who's going to be in the meeting and you know their names, look them up on things like LinkedIn, okay? And if they're on there, which they usually will be, look at their background. What's their background? If you know that they're an accountant, okay, or you know that they're a psychology major, or you know that they're an engineer, that's going to inform you of the things that they might be looking for and what they might consider important, okay? So do your research. And if you're dealing with multiple people when you get there, make sure you know their names, okay? If there's 3 people interviewing you, what's really cool is if, you know all their names. So halfway through the interview, you can say John or, Janet or, whatever to them, right? That's very impressive. So hopefully that makes sense. That's what I would say in a nutshell. But check out my video on how to prepare for a second interview. Ice Cold Wasim says, hey, what if I don't know an answer for a question? What do I do? Well, you could always scream and run out of the room or panic. Either or. Both are good. No, I'm just kidding. Look, it depends what question. Usually you fall back on a few default answers. Okay. A great answer to fall back on is to reiterate to them how you have the things that they said they were looking for in the job posting. That's a great sort of fallback answer. Okay. I mean, obviously, it depends what question they're asking you. You know, I can't really tell you what to do without really knowing what it is that they asked you that you can't answer, right? It would help if I knew kind of what question it was, but there's a few. If you do mock job interviews, okay, you practice with a friend or family member, like I've mentioned before, you will see how that goes. Okay, you will eventually figure out like what to fall back on. Okay, there's a few things where you can fall back on it. And the things that you are there to do are to tell them, A, you have all the requirements. B, you are passionate about the job because you want to do the job. C, you are really easy to deal with. Okay, you're friendly, you're accommodating, you try and help people. D, you act appropriately. Okay, you understand, you know, the sort of rules of being a human being and the rules of being an employee. You know, if someone's having an emergency, like a medical emergency, you know that outranks any sort of company rules, for example, on like how to, you know, what to do, right? If it's a life or death situation. Okay. Things like this. Okay. So just keep that in mind. That's your purpose in the interview. So if they ask you a question and you can't really answer it directly, you can maybe use it as a platform to say the thing that you want to say. Okay. They say like, you know, tell me about a time when, you know, this happened to you. Tell me about a time when your boss came up to you and they said that they needed your help to work on a project, but you felt that you didn't have what it took to be able to do this project because you knew nothing about it. Tell me about a time when that happened. And you can't think of anything because that's never happened to you before. So you say, well, you know, that hasn't happened to me too much, but you know, what has happened to me that's quite similar to that is, and then you tell a story that demonstrates how you have certain skills that they're looking for, or it demonstrates your passion for a certain job, or any of the other things I mentioned. Okay. You can always give a politician's answer. You cannot answer the question that they ask you directly because you honestly don't know. It's a silly question or it doesn't apply to you. And instead, you give the answer to the question you wish they'd ask you. Okay? It sounds very slimy and stupid, but it's actually very effective. Okay? So these are all possibilities depending on what it is that they've asked you that you can't answer. Oh, that was long-winded. I apologize. Okay, I have another 10 minutes and then I have to sign off, so we'll get through some of the last questions here. Chris H. Chris H says, I landed a job in a new field. Congratulations, Chris. When it came to the salary negotiation, I accepted the first offer as it was reasonable and I wanted change. Now I don't know whether I undersold. How could I have acted better? Well, Chris, if you're asking, is there anything you can do at this point? The answer is kind of no. But if, as you said, you're asking like, what could I have done? Okay. For maybe next time. Okay. The time to negotiate is obviously when they give you an offer. You don't try and negotiate before an offer, okay? And you don't accept an offer and then try and negotiate, okay? The time to negotiate is when they give you an offer. And the only thing that you really have to bargain with at that point is the fact that they've invested so much time and effort in you, okay? It's more of a psychological sort of investment because yes, they've gone through the expense of doing a job search, okay, to find a candidate. Now, usually what they do is they have a short list of 3. That's standard practice, especially for manager type jobs. They'll have like a short list of 3 candidates. They'll have the front runner and then 2 sort of runners up. And if there's any kind of problem with the front runner, they have 2 sort of backups. So if this person refuses the offer, or there's some other problem, we're going to offer it to person number 2 and then person number 3. Okay. So usually they do that to try and cover their bases. Okay. But what you have to bargain with is you have to bargain with the fact that they've thought it through, and usually the hiring manager has decided on you. They want you. Okay. So if you were to turn around and all of a sudden you're a problem and it doesn't look like it's going to work out, they're disappointed. They feel pain. They think, oh, we can't get the person we want. We're going to have to get this other person that I wasn't really excited about, right? They're disappointed. Okay. That's the only really thing you have to bargain with. Okay. It is sometimes possible to lengthen the process to the point where even their backup options, their runners up, it's been such a long time since they interviewed that they might no longer be on the table. Excuse me. So it's the only thing you have to bargain with. So in that moment, what you want to do is you want to appear that you are accommodating. You want to make it, you want to create the perception, whether real or imagined, that you're giving up some stuff because you want the job. Maybe they don't pay you everything you're wanting, but you'll live with it because you are getting this job and you're excited about that job. Okay. So maybe they don't give you enough vacation. Maybe they don't give you enough benefits. Maybe they don't give you enough, remote work options, or, maybe the parking options are not good. And maybe it requires a little more travel than you had wanted, or, whatever. Right? So, you want to appear, rightly or wrongly, that you're sort of accepting those limitations, right? In exchange for accepting the job. But if you have 1 or 2 demands to counterbalance the fact that you've given them a bunch of things, you say, look, okay, fine. I was hoping for 4 weeks vacation, but okay, I'll accept 3. I was hoping for 10 sick days. That's what I got on my last job, but you only give 2. Okay, fine. Blah, blah, blah. I'll take this. I'll take that. But for say monthly salary, I'm going to need this. If you agree to that, we got a deal. I'll start whenever you want. Something like that, right? That's how you do these things. Okay. You can't just sit back and demand something. You can't demand something that they feel is arbitrary, because everybody will try and push for more regardless, right? And from the point of view of a manager, for people that have never been a manager, or managers, that every employee wants more money. They all feel that they deserve more money. Okay, a lot of times they bluff and say, like, well, if you don't give me more money, I'll quit. And then when you say, no, sorry, I can't give you more money, they don't quit, they stay, right? So your reaction is to sort of resist that, okay? You would love to pay everyone $1 million. That would be a great situation to be in. You don't want to pay people peanuts. You want to pay them a lot, but unfortunately you can't, right? Your budget is very tight, okay? So if you're going to give anyone anything extra, you want to see that they are making sacrifices themselves, right? That's how you want to feel about this stuff. Okay, so that's how that usually works. Okay, so that would be the process that I would recommend. If you're going to negotiate, that's when you do it. That's how you do it. And that usually works if you have a reasonable request. You want to bump up the salary a little bit, but you are willing to accept maybe some other aspects of the compensation or the working conditions that are less than ideal. So hopefully that makes sense to Chris H. Chris says, by the way, thanks for all the great advice. I put it to good use for landing the job in the first place. Well, congratulations, Chris. That's great. I'm glad that that worked out. Brandon Klein says, yes, it did. This was my buddy Brandon here. Okay, yeah, with the questions. Yes, it did. Thank you. I have a big interview next Wednesday and going to make examples for it and prepare for that. Yes, I've done some videos on those, so check those out. They're called behavioral questions. Andrew says, do you think OpenAI will replace you? I don't know what OpenAI is, and I don't think it's going to replace anyone. I mean, AI is an AI. I don't know why they use that term, artificial intelligence, because it is an intelligence. It's an algorithm. There's a difference between an algorithm and intelligence, right? And I mean, I'm an electrical engineer. Back when I was studying electrical engineer, like a million years ago, electrical engineering, they were working on neural nets and automata and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's the beginnings of making actual artificial intelligence. I think at that point, they were up to making neural nets that had the same intelligence as a cockroach, okay? So, you know, we're talking about mechanical automation is what we're talking about today. Actual artificial intelligence is a long way off. Kita says, any advice for online interviews that may be different that you have to keep in mind than in personal interviews? No, not really. Just the mechanics of like the camera and the sound and that kind of thing. Always wear pants, right? I'm wearing pants. You can see, right. You know, that was the funniest thing about those sort of meetings by telecommunications, right? When those first started, like about 5 years ago, it started to get mainstream. The newscasters going on the TV, and you know they're sitting there in their underwear and their shirt and their tie, and everyone can see it, right? That was the funniest part of it. There's some complications sometimes around file sharing. So if you're doing an online interview where the interviewer is sending you files, like a questionnaire or something like that, and you have to sort of complete it and send it back, that's an added level of complexity. The other thing I will say is that, like, look, if you are going to use a computer, okay, for business, and if you're doing job interviews over your computer or device, okay, learn how to use your device. Okay, there's nothing more unprofessional than watching people fumble with like USB devices or flash drives, or, you know, like they can't work their own technology, and the pressure's on because it's either a job interview or a keynote or a presentation or something like that. There's nothing more unprofessional. Okay, if you are using your own device to do the conference or the stream or whatever it is, make sure it goes flawlessly. Use that software, whether it's Teams or Zoom or, you know, whatever you're using. Use it with other people. Get familiar with the software. Make sure that like they can see you and hear you perfectly. Make sure that there's no issues with how to use it or anything like that, because that's also something that they're going to be evaluating you on. You know, I mean, if you have a bad internet connection where you live, that's something you don't really have a lot of control over, but pretty much everything else you have control over. And if you don't get it right, it makes a bad first impression, you know? So don't neglect that when it comes time to prepare for job interviews, okay, if you're going to be doing remote interviews. And I have to go soon, so I'm going to take this last question. This is from Shanzy's 2 cents. Shanzy's 2 cents, my good friend, we go way back together, says, should I keep a job on my resume that ended badly? It's the only time I've been fed enough to just quit. You mean like fed up enough? Annoyed enough to just quit. I was there for years and gained a lot of experience. Thank you. Sure, yeah, keep it on there. There's no reason why you have to remove that. Now, if they ask you and they say, can we contact your old boss at that job as a reference? Then you would say, well, I'd prefer that you didn't. I would say no, because I did not leave on good terms. Even though I was there for years and years, I actually didn't leave on good terms. And so I'm afraid that that particular boss of mine has a personal grievance against me, and they're vindictive, and they will say a lot of things to paint me in a bad light just because of our strained personal relationship. So I will not be giving you them as a reference. Now, if you are going to say that, make sure that you then have substitutes. You have other bosses at other jobs that they could use as a reference, something like that. If there are others, then it shouldn't be a problem. If you've only worked at this job and there's really nothing else, then that's going to be a bit of a limitation, okay? But in any scenario, I would say keep it on your resume, okay? Don't bring it up unless they specifically ask, can we contact your previous boss or anyone at that job to use as a reference, okay? You don't want to advance it. Just if they bring that up, then you say, well, no, unfortunately, and here's why, and this is what's going on there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I really have to go now, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a meeting coming up in like 5 minutes, so I see there's one last question here from Anu. How to avoid unplanned, irrelevant tasks from colleagues, like getting thick-skinned when saying no to them? That's a big topic. I can't really get into it. Look, be nice, okay? Just be nice. A huge part of good interpersonal skills and good communication skills is being able to deliver bad news in such a way that it doesn't damage the relationship between you and the other party, okay? A constant in the world of business is having to say no, having to deliver bad news, okay? You have to do this constantly. If every time you say no or deliver bad news, you burn a bridge with somebody and you make that person hate you, things are not going to go well for you, okay? So learning how to do that professionally is very important. Unfortunately, I can't get into it today. I have to go. But thank you very much. I will be back next Wednesday at the same time. So come back next Wednesday and we can get into it if you would like. Thanks to everyone who is here. You guys are all awesome. I wish you the best of luck. Check out my videos. Check out my courses. I've got 2 courses, how to get hired and how to learn business. There's links in the description. Subscribe to my other YouTube channel, The Company's Expert 2. That's where a lot of these live streams end up. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.